Closure Continuation is an album that explores paradox and meaning. We move away from the emotional numbness that was critiqued on Fear of a Blank Planet to experience. Songs of boredom and experience, eh? But is it any good? Let's find out, shall we? Welcome classic rock fans to an episode of New Album Review. If you're new to this channel, please do click like, subscribe and check that bell to get notified of any future uploads. Today we're looking at Closure Continuation, the new Porcupine Tree record, which no doubt is plopping through numerous stores across the country as we speak. I think it's fair to say this is a multifaceted and mysterious band that generally appeals to obsessive compulsives everywhere. And for many, they occupy that broad church, which is progressive rock, which is pretty spacey and eclectic to begin with, moving away from them as earlier forays into space rock psychedelia. The watershed being In Absentia. There is a wonderful review of this album currently on my Patreon if you are interested in checking that out. I will apologise in advance as I've written this review very quickly after listening to this album, so if I'm glancing down at my computer screen much more often than I should do, that is why. I just haven't rehearsed properly. Since 2009's The Incident, there's been much browbeating and pavement pounding and gnashing of teeth amongst Porcupine Tree fans who possibly contemplated that this was the end. But with the release of Harridan, speculation soon transmogrified horribly into expectation. Quenched, of course, by the announcement of this album, Closure Continuation. There is, of course, a dichotomy represented in the title, Closure Continuation, and that plays out across the 10 tracks on this record. Long-standing members Stephen Wilson, Gavin Harrison, Richard Barberi, forgive me if I've said his name wrong, have merged once more, of course, minus the bassist Colin Edwin. Those shoes, if you're interested, both be filled on the tour by Nate Navarro, who has played with Devon Townsend. But as regards this album, of course, we have to content ourselves with the aforementioned Porcupine Tree members. Like a lot of Porcupine Tree's music, there seems to be a neurosis or an anxiety that swells from the very centre of it. A track like Dignity, of course, where Wilson muses on ageing and mortality, describing a man that sounds like a slightly matured version of himself, an older version of himself, if you like. New Day, it seems to be a fairly optimistic number, although tinged with a smidgen of anxiety. And whereas Fear of a Blank Planet, as I've already said, focused on this kind of numbness brought on by over-reliance on technology and prescription drugs, on this album one can still detect traces of what one critic has described as a sour melancholy. Harridan is the opening track. It's a track I've already responded to. I should put the card up there for you. It's a wonderful slice of maniacal, magical, musical mayhem. It begins with that fabulous funky bass where I presume Steve Wilson channels his inner Sly and the Family Stone with that irregular synths and rather unnerving guitars as well. It's all quite an intense listening experience. And that harrowing and aggressive bass line is accompanied by Harrison's characteristic syncopation and Barberi's beautiful atmospherics. And the vocals themselves are an intriguing melding of different harmonies jousting against each other. It's a number made up with these strange, unnerving declarations and metallic guitar stabs. Of the New Day is a fascinating one on this one. Mood, disparity and variation are the three horsemen of the prog apocalypse on this album. This number slows everything down to an almost joyful canter. The ballad becomes gradually grittier as we go on with Harrison's scything drums, and ultimately it's a tune that focuses on, I think, rebirth and optimism. Not as bleak as some of the Porcupine Tree stuff they've done on the last album, certainly. Wilson's vocals and guitar tones are multifaceted and layered. There's that juxtaposition with Barberi's keyboards, I think, that makes this an intriguing listen as we're immersed in these luminous landscapes that he creates for us. Rats Return is a song that's very much defined by, I think, Harrison's drumming. Wilson's voice and guitar are fairly plaintive and vigorous in equal measure. Overall, there was this jarring and jagged presence in this number, an existential threat all bubbling away, which very much characterises Porcupine Tree for me. Dignity is a bright guitar melody from Wilson. Magnificent acoustic melody, I have to say. Brilliant lyrics about introspection and the plight of the homeless. And it might just be me, but I swear I can detect a whiff of David Bowie's Space Oddity. Herd Calling is one of the standout tracks on this album. It wouldn't sound out of place on In Absentia, in my opinion. Hard, heavy and complex, just as we like it. A number about a father teaching his son the art of hunting and property protection with weapons. And the music as it is perfectly mirrors the intensity of the lyrics. A shout out has to go out to Harrison's drumming and being able to keep down that 11/8 time. I mean, his drumming is absolutely intense, and Barberi's tasteful arpeggios are absolutely delightful. Especially when juxtaposed, of course, with Wilson's guitar riffs on this. It has something of Radiohead's Amnesiac, that's what I'm getting as I listen to it. But it's certainly an unsettling prog fest of synths and guitars. Walk the Plank feels like a fairly trippy interlude. It's a dark number about drowning, gloomy and a tad disturbing to boot. Fans of the earlier ambient Porcupine Tree stuff might enjoy this. Chimera's Wreck is a full-on 10-minute prog soundscape, a sad but melancholic number. It begins with this very slow refrain. The song's title is about a single organism that is made up of cells from two or more individuals. Overall, it's a pleasing, melodic, arpeggiated guitar riff across a suspended chord. The song gradually builds, and Barberi and Harrison are immense in terms of the musical swell and flow of this number, culminating those stabbing crescendos. It opens with the wonderful psychedelic and hypnotic Middle Eastern drumming, and it has an intensity that culminates in Wilson singing, "I'm afraid to be happy and die, I couldn't care less if I was to die." Cheery stuff, eh? Overall, after playing this record this morning, I can say it was a thoroughly enjoyable listen. One critic has pointed out that, and I'm quoting, "No one plays polyrhythms quite like Harrison, but no one provides a platform quite like Wilson on which to do so." I fully agree with that, but let's not forget that Barberi's soundscapes are equally impressive on this album. Of course, Harrison is also, if I'm not mistaken, a prominent force in the Pineapple Thief. The production is excellent. Of course, Wilson has favoured the lead vocal in the mix, but certainly not at the detriment of the other instruments. It's a perfect balance, never losing one iota of the intricacies and nuances that we get with this band. But then that's what you get for having a world-class producer, I guess. This album certainly has not disappointed me. There was a renewed sharpness and focus with this one. Maybe that 12-year hiatus was just what the band needed. Anyway, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are on this album. Have you listened to it? What do you think of it as Porcupine Tree fans, or even as just prog faithful, maybe? Once again, I apologise for the rather haphazard way this has been put together with me glaring down at my computer screen, simply because I wanted to get this review out there today and didn't have that much time to try and memorise some of my notes. Anyway, I will leave you, as I always do, by hoping that you are well, safe, and more importantly, of course, that you keep listening.